I'm obsessed with checking my accounts daily, and I have major FOMO if I don't check them daily. Is there a downside to dollar cost averaging on a daily basis instead of on a less frequent basis? Can that be? But as someone who dollar cost averages many, many times throughout the month himself, what say you to the answer? What say you to this question?
I feel a little responsibility here, but Earl, every day? Is that what Earl said?
Every day.
And he says he gets a little sad if he doesn't check his accounts.
Major FOMO was the exact language that Earl the Squirrel used.
Okay. Look, I don't mind being self-reflective and giving the experience shares in the fact that I've told you guys that I was doing monthly purchases, and then at some point that warped itself to where I was buying twice a month. And I was like, well, if twice a month was good, you know, it would be really fun if I did this every week. So I do have weekly purchases in my investment, in my after-tax joint investment account.
Okay.
And then, of course, 401k goes in every month. Some of the other accounts, they get grouped and funded only once, you know, because you can profit sharing, Roth conversions,
Sure.
Those things are all one-offs. But I think about Earl. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say they want to do every day.
Daily.
So, and I'll give some stats because Earl will probably love this since he's obviously taken this thing from here and he's launched it into outer space with taking it and jumping a mile. If you look at the markets since 1937, if you look at it on a daily basis, markets are up 53% of the time.
On a day by day. It's some days are up, some days are down.
It's a little better than a coin flip. If you do it monthly, which is what the majority of, I think, people do when we're talking about dollar cost averaging, it's 62.9% of the time it's up.
Okay.
And then if you do this quarterly, because some people get, you know, bonuses or other things that come through quarterly, it's up 69% of the time. If you're only funding stuff once a year, because it's the one-off type of things, you know, like I was talking about if you're doing backdoor Roth conversions,
Sure.
other things like that, it's up 77% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But this is losing the question for the forest of all those stats, is because what I worry about with Earl the Squirrel is that from a behavioral standpoint, the hyper focus on the daily ups and downs is probably doing more emotional damage and actually hurting the actual completion of his financial goals over the long term than even giving all those stats that I just shared.
Yeah, the question that I would have for Earl is, if you're doing this, is the juice really worth the squeeze? Like, are you actually getting a benefit from doing this? It's no different than if you try to watch grass grow or you try to watch paint dry. It's really, really difficult to see that happening. But if you're someone who doesn't check your accounts daily, and maybe you only look at them on a month-end basis, or you look at them quarterly, or I think what's great is if you really only look at your total account balance once a year when you do your annual net worth statement, you will be amazed at the ground you are able to cover throughout the course of a year. But if you're tracking it and watching every day, I agree, Brian. I think that you'd be likely an emotional wreck, that on good days you're up and on down days you're down. And if we know that the market on a day-by-day basis is only about 53% of the time, that means half the time you're happy and half the time you're sad. When in reality, if you look at it less frequently and you see the accounts moving, you're going to be amazed that, man, every time I look at my accounts, I looked at it 6 months ago and, man, it's higher now. Or I looked at it a year ago and now they're higher. I think that you're going to have a lot higher likelihood of staying the course and sticking with it if you approach it that way.
Well, here's the key takeaway. Everything we're trying to share with you is how can we take the emotion out of the transaction? Because most people are horrible at controlling their emotions, the whole fear, greed battle that's constantly going. Always be buying. The whole superpower of this is that it makes the good habit of building wealth as easy as possible, but then it makes the bad habit of overspending and waiting until you're investing only what's left over. You're actually getting ahead of that by paying yourself first. That's why I love always be buying. But if you're doing this in a detrimental way, where you're doing it on a daily basis, it's giving you emotional stress in a lot of ways, you are using ABB all wrong. And I would ask you to revisit that, because what this is really supposed to be working on is making it automatic for the people and giving you that inevitable walk towards wealth.
Love it.